Imagine a world where digital weapons, just like nuclear arms, exist, capable of destroying a country's economy or military power in seconds. This is the story of secret hacking groups, intelligence agencies, and cyber warriors who have taken control of global politics from behind the internet curtain. Today, we're taking you into a world that you've never seen before. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to leave your name and your share name in the comments. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Let's jump right into it. For a long time, the word power had a clear meaning. It belonged to governments, armies, and institutions with physical control. That definition began to fail when computers became central to communication, finance, energy, and decision-making. At that moment, a new type of influence emerged, one that did not depend on territory or weapons, but on understanding systems better than those who built them. This is where the idea of the best hacker truly begins, not as a criminal label, but as a measure of capability. A hacker, in its simplest form, is someone who understands how a system works and how it can be controlled beyond its intended limits. A spy, on the other hand, is someone who seeks information from within. The difference matters, but the overlap is where real power forms. Because when technical knowledge meets access, control becomes possible without confrontation. Modern code became power because it operates invisibly. A line of code can influence millions of people without announcing itself. Governments understood this faster than the public. They saw that digital systems were no longer support tools. They were the backbone of national life. Any weakness inside them meant exposure at the highest level. This is why states began fearing hackers, not because of chaos, but because of unpredictability. Traditional enemies are known, mapped, and monitored. Hackers are not. Cyber weapons emerged from this fear. They are not random malware or amateur tools. At their core, cyber weapons are carefully designed methods to exploit weaknesses, gain access, and maintain control without being detected. They do not destroy immediately. They observe, collect, and wait. This made them uniquely dangerous because damage could occur long after access was gained. What makes this story unique is not a single attack or incident, but a shift in balance. For the first time, power stopped being proportional to size or resources. A small group, or even one individual, could influence systems larger than themselves. This realization forced governments, intelligence agencies, and corporations to rethink security, trust, and authority. Somewhere inside this transformation, attention began focusing on a new question, not whether systems could be breached, but who was capable of doing it consistently, silently, and effectively. The world was no longer asking if hackers mattered. It was beginning to ask whether one of them stood above all others, not because of noise or publicity, but because of impact. The classic hacker era, Kevin-type hackers. During the early years of widespread computing, hacking did not emerge from crime or ideology. It emerged from curiosity. Computers were expensive, rare, and poorly understood by most institutions, while a small group of technically curious individuals began exploring how these systems functioned beneath the surface. This early hacker culture, mostly active during the 1980s and 1990s, was driven by exploration rather than destruction. These individuals were not looking to break systems for profit or attention. They were trying to understand how closed environments worked and how rules could be bypassed through logic rather than force. Systems were hacked not through advanced tools, but through patience, observation, and experimentation. Security was minimal, documentation was limited, and many protections were based on assumptions rather than verification. Access often came from simple mistakes, default configurations, or overlooked entry points that system designers never expected someone to test. As networks expanded, hacking shifted from isolated machines to interconnected systems. This is where the mindset became important. Hackers were not attacking computers as machines. They were interacting with processes created by humans. Over time, it became clear that technology was rarely the weakest link. People were. This realization led to what later became known as social engineering, a method that relied on manipulating trust rather than exploiting software. By convincing individuals to reveal information, reset credentials, or grant access, hackers bypassed complex security without touching a single line of protected code. This approach revealed a deeper problem. Systems were built to function, not to be questioned. Authorities initially failed to recognize this shift. Early responses treated hacking as a nuisance or vandalism. Incidents were handled quietly, often internally, and public concern was minimal. Law enforcement lacked technical understanding, and legislation lagged behind reality. When systems were compromised, blame was placed on individuals rather than structural weaknesses. This allowed the problem to grow unnoticed. As incidents became more frequent and more disruptive, perceptions changed. Governments and corporations began realizing that these were not random acts. Patterns emerged. Hackers were learning faster than defenders. Each intrusion exposed how little organizations understood their own infrastructure. This triggered the first major digital manhunts, where authorities actively sought individuals who operated behind anonymity. These pursuits were difficult because hackers did not exist in physical spaces that could be monitored. Their identities were fragmented across aliases, networks, and temporary access points. When arrests finally occurred, they produced mixed results. Some hackers were punished harshly, while others were studied. What authorities learned from these cases was uncomfortable. Many of the individuals they chased had no formal training, no institutional backing, and no advanced resources. Their advantage came from understanding systems deeply and thinking differently than those tasked with protecting them. This period also revealed an important transition. Not all hackers followed the same path. Some remained driven by curiosity, others by challenge, and some by recognition. Over time, a division formed between those who exploited systems for personal gain or damage, and those who began using their skills defensively. This marked the emergence of the black hat and white hat distinction. Black hat hackers pursued access without consent, often crossing legal boundaries. White hat hackers applied the same skills to identify weaknesses before they could be exploited. This division was not moral by design. It was functional. Organizations slowly realized that the people capable of breaking systems were often the only ones capable of securing them. This realization forced a change in attitude. Hackers were no longer viewed only as threats. They became assets, consultants, and testers. However, this shift did not eliminate risk. It amplified it. The same knowledge could be applied in multiple directions depending on intent. The classic hacker era proved one critical lesson. Capability does not depend on authority. Skill does not require permission. And understanding a system better than its owner grants power, regardless of position. By the end of this era, hacking had fully separated itself from experimentation. It became a capability with real consequences. Institutions no longer asked whether systems could be compromised. They accepted that they could. The new question became who possessed the discipline, intelligence, and restraint to use that capability without being detected. Attention began shifting away from isolated individuals toward the tools and methods that made such access possible at scale. The foundation was set for a transformation where hacking would move beyond people and into weapons. Digital weapons are born. As hacking matured, the transition from individual exploration to state-level operations became inevitable. Governments recognized that the same techniques used by curious hackers could be adapted into tools capable of strategic impact. Digital weapons were born not from chaos, but from deliberate design. A cyber weapon is distinct from malware. It is a precision instrument built to exploit specific vulnerabilities for specific outcomes, while remaining undetectable for as long as possible. One of the most valuable assets in this era was the zero-day exploit, an unknown flaw in software that, if discovered by the right person, could grant complete control over a system. 0 days are powerful because they bypass protections without leaving traces, and until they are patched, they provide a temporary advantage that cannot be defended against. Intelligence agencies began developing specialized units to design, store, and deploy these tools, recruiting talent from the hacker world itself. Engineers, mathematicians, and former hackers were organized into teams to create tools capable of entering networks silently, mapping systems, and maintaining persistence for years. Cyber weapons were not deployed like conventional arms. They required careful planning, compartmentalization, and strict secrecy. Each tool was cataloged, each operation tested in controlled environments, and access limited to those who needed to know. Despite all precautions, the risk of exposure was always present. A leak could render a weapon useless overnight, or worse, allow it to fall into unintended hands. Digital weapons' danger lies not just in their immediate effect, but in their scalability. Once a tool is released, intentionally or accidentally, it can propagate through interconnected networks, reaching thousands of systems without additional input. The very characteristics that make cyber weapons' powerful precision, speed, and invisibility also make them unpredictable and uncontrollable once released. This created a delicate balance. Governments had to weigh offensive capability against the risk of accidental or unauthorized exposure. At the same time, as critical infrastructure became increasingly digitized, these tools were capable of affecting not just rival states, but civilians, hospitals, transportation, and finance. The border between military targets and civilian systems became blurred, raising questions about responsibility, ethics, and unintended consequences. Unlike physical weapons, digital weapons leave no visible trace, often causing long-term damage that is difficult to measure or attribute. The secrecy required to maintain operational advantage meant that only a few individuals could understand the full scope of these capabilities, making oversight nearly impossible. Each operation carried both strategic benefit and existential risk. The birth of digital weapons fundamentally changed the nature of power. Skill alone was no longer sufficient. Influence depended on access, stealth, and timing. Intelligence agencies realized that the next era of dominance would not be decided in battlefields, but in server rooms and networks. As this capability developed, the world entered a stage where a single person with enough skill and knowledge could rival state actors in influence without ever firing a shot. The line between hacker, spy, and weapon became indistinct. Cyber weapons required the same discipline and caution as nuclear arsenals. Yet unlike nukes, there was no global framework, no public debate, no treaties. Each digital tool represented an invisible lever of control, capable of altering the balance of power, and its existence introduced uncertainty into every decision made by governments. The era of digital weapons was no longer theoretical. It was active, operational, and silently shaping the modern world. When secrets leaked, after years of careful development and tight secrecy, the first significant leaks of digital weapons began to surface. Classified tools, once designed for controlled operations, suddenly appeared outside the secure environments of intelligence agencies. These leaks were not random. They were deliberate breaches, carried out by insiders or unknown actors who recognized the potential impact of releasing powerful cyber tools into the public domain. When these exploits became available to anyone with technical knowledge, the consequences were immediate and global. The appearance of leaked digital weapons exposed the fragility of systems that governments and corporations had assumed were protected. Suddenly, vulnerabilities that had been carefully hidden became widely known, allowing individuals and groups to test and deploy them in ways never anticipated. The digital security community reacted with urgency, analyzing tools that were sophisticated enough to bypass the strongest safeguards. Governments scrambled to assess what had been lost and to determine whether critical operations had been compromised. Trust, which had been the foundation of digital security strategy, began to erode. The realization that insiders or unknown actors could release such powerful tools forced a re-evaluation of every assumption about security. Each leak created a chain reaction. Systems previously considered secure became targets. Previous operations were re-evaluated, and new strategies were urgently devised to prevent further exposure. Analysts realized that these leaks did not just endanger one country or organization. They affected interconnected networks globally, including civilian infrastructure, corporations, and government institutions. This period marked the first time the power of digital weapons escaped the control of states and entered the hands of potentially anyone. The strategic balance, carefully maintained for decades, shifted overnight. Governments understood that containment of knowledge was now as critical as the development of tools themselves. In this environment, hackers gained unprecedented influence. The act of leaking digital weapons was not only a technical operation, but a psychological one, sending a message that no system was completely secure and that power could be redistributed in unexpected ways. What had previously been theoretical, the idea that a single actor or small group could disrupt systems at the national or international level, was now proven possible. The security world entered a state of constant vigilance, where analysis, defense, and attribution became urgent priorities. This era of leaks demonstrated the limits of control, the fragility of trust, and the new reality. Once digital weapons exist, even the most sophisticated agencies cannot guarantee they will remain contained. Every tool that escapes secrecy becomes a wildcard in global power dynamics. By the end of this phase, the world realized that the digital age had introduced a form of influence that could not be fully predicted, measured, or constrained, setting the stage for the first global crises triggered by digital weapons. The global shock WannaCry phase. The moment leaked tools began circulating, the first large-scale impact arrived. The world witnessed an unprecedented digital crisis. Ransomware named WannaCry spread rapidly, exploiting vulnerabilities that had been exposed by previous leaks. Hospitals halted operations, banks froze transactions, and critical infrastructure in multiple countries began malfunctioning. Unlike traditional disasters, this shock did not result from natural causes or physical attacks. It arrived silently, invisibly, riding on networks and code. It arrived silently, invisibly, riding on networks and code. Panic spread as organizations scrambled to understand the scope of the attack. Emergency response teams worked around the clock, applying patches, isolating systems, and attempting to restore normalcy. Despite their efforts, the damage was immediate and global. Corporations lost revenue, patients were delayed in receiving care, and governments were forced to admit that their reliance on digital systems made them vulnerable in ways previously unimaginable. The impact demonstrated the terrifying potential of digital weapons when they moved beyond controlled operations. A single tool, unleashed without oversight, had caused disruption on a scale that rivaled physical attacks, yet left no bombs, no fire, and no visible destruction. Analysts noted patterns of infection that revealed the underlying weaknesses of modern networks: outdated software, delayed updates, and a lack of coordinated defense strategies. The crisis underscored how interconnected systems amplified the effects of cyber attacks. What might have been isolated incidents in the past became cascading failures, affecting multiple sectors simultaneously. Governments convened emergency meetings to assess vulnerabilities, patch critical systems, and communicate with the public. Yet even as responses were implemented, experts realized that the real lesson was not temporary containment, but systemic exposure. The digital landscape had changed. Security could no longer rely solely on reactive measures. Preventive intelligence, constant monitoring, and rapid incident response became essential. The WannaCry incident was a tangible demonstration of what had long been theorized, that digital weapons could disrupt society on a global scale without firing a single bullet. It also highlighted the speed at which digital crises could propagate far faster than any conventional attack. In addition to the operational impact, the event created widespread awareness. Citizens, organizations, and policymakers realized that cybersecurity was no longer a technical concern confined to IT departments. It was a matter of national security, public safety, and even survival. This phase forced a recognition of the fragile balance between digital dependency and the threat posed by unseen actors. The shock of WannaCry was not only operational, it was psychological. For the first time, the global population confronted the reality that vulnerabilities could exist anywhere, be exploited by anyone, and cause real harm instantly. By the end of this phase, it was clear that digital weapons were not theoretical, not contained, and not limited. They were active forces in the world, capable of shaping behavior, economies, and governments alike. The global shock had begun, and there was no turning back. The insider problem, while the world was grappling with public cyber crisis, a quieter, more insidious threat persisted: insiders. Individuals with legitimate access to sensitive systems possessed the ultimate power to influence, disrupt, or expose information. Unlike external hackers, insiders were already inside the defenses, bypassing barriers not through skill alone, but by occupying trusted positions. Access, in this context, became the single most valuable asset. No firewall, encryption, or monitoring could replace the authority granted by internal credentials. Snowden-type leaks highlighted the ethical and strategic dilemmas that arise when insiders act. When one individual chooses to disclose information, the consequences ripple across governments, corporations, and societies. Trust frameworks, painstakingly built over years, fail instantly. The impact of insider access is amplified not only by the information exposed, but by the uncertainty it creates. Agencies realize that sophisticated cyber defenses could be rendered irrelevant in seconds if someone with knowledge and privilege acted outside protocol. The comparison between spies and hackers became more pronounced. While hackers relied on technical skill, spies exploited position and access. A spy inside an intelligence agency could deploy tools, observe operations, or exfiltrate data without ever triggering alarms. Similarly, a technically skilled insider could manipulate systems in ways external attackers could not. Modern intelligence structures, despite advanced monitoring, showed systemic weaknesses. Over-reliance on secrecy, trust in protocols, and compartmentalization could be undermined by a single motivated individual. The Snowden leaks were a case study in this vulnerability. Tools, information, and operational details, once considered tightly held, were exposed to the world. Ethics clashed with national security as debates erupted over justification, intent, and the consequences of disclosure. Agencies were forced to reconsider recruitment, oversight, and monitoring practices, but no solution proved perfect. The lesson became clear. While digital weapons, malware, and zero-day exploits were dangerous, insider threats could magnify or bypass these dangers entirely. The human factor remained the ultimate wildcard in cybersecurity. Every policy, system design, or protocol depended on people adhering to rules, and when one person acted independently, the entire infrastructure could be compromised. This realization led to profound changes in how access was managed, yet the inherent risk could never be eliminated. Insider threats are unpredictable not because they are random, but because human motivation is complex. Some acted from ideology, others from frustration or principle, and some from ambition. The uncertainty of intent, combined with unrestricted access, created an environment where even the most secure system could be turned against its owner. In essence, the insider problem demonstrated a fundamental truth about modern power. Technical skill alone does not confer influence, and access, combined with intent, can be more consequential than any cyber weapon. It forced governments, corporations, and societies to confront a reality that no technology could fully control. In a world dependent on interconnected networks and digital infrastructure, insiders became a variable that could neither be predicted nor fully neutralized. Can anyone be stopped? Tracing hackers, especially those with advanced capabilities, is a challenge unlike any other. Unlike traditional criminals, they operate across borders, using layers of anonymity, proxies, and encryption to conceal their identities. Attempts at attribution often fail or produce conflicting results, creating ambiguity about who is responsible for a given attack. False flags further complicate the issue. Digital operations can be manipulated to appear as though another actor is responsible, deliberately misdirecting governments and security teams. The difficulty of attribution challenges the legal and political frameworks that rely on clarity of responsibility. Laws are inherently slower than technology, unable to adapt to rapidly evolving tactics, and enforcement is complicated by jurisdictional limits. In cyber war, victory is not defined by occupation or destruction. It is measured by control, influence, and the ability to remain undetected while achieving objectives. Even the most advanced defense systems cannot guarantee total prevention. As attacks evolve, defenders often respond reactively, addressing symptoms rather than root capabilities. This creates a cycle in which the offensive side can innovate faster than the defensive side can adapt. The limits of stopping advanced hackers are compounded by human factors: insider knowledge, social engineering, and operational mistakes. A single overlooked detail can render the most sophisticated defense ineffective. The nature of digital power ensures that absolute control is impossible. Even the strongest government, corporation, or network cannot eliminate the risk entirely. This reality raises difficult questions about accountability, preparedness, and trust. Is it possible to truly stop actors who operate globally, invisibly, and unpredictably? The evidence suggests that containment is temporary and prevention is limited. The most realistic approach combines layered defenses, intelligence gathering, public awareness, and rapid response, but always with the understanding that gaps exist. In this environment, hackers, insiders, and skilled operators will continue to exploit weaknesses, sometimes with devastating effects. The digital battlefield is not a physical space. It is a constantly shifting network of systems, people, and information. Each action can have cascading, unpredictable consequences. Yet, even with these challenges, understanding the mechanisms of attacks, identifying patterns, and deploying rapid mitigation strategies remain essential. While total elimination may be impossible, strategic management can limit damage and slow adversaries. By the end of this phase, the lesson is clear. In the modern digital world, absolute victory is unrealistic, but calculated resilience, intelligence, and anticipation can create an environment where even the most powerful hackers cannot act with impunity. The question is no longer whether they exist or whether they can succeed. It is how societies can adapt to survive, maintain functional security in an era where invisible operators wield unprecedented influence. The future of power. As the digital landscape continues to evolve, the question of power in cyberspace becomes increasingly complex. Traditional notions of military strength, territorial control, and economic influence are no longer sufficient to define supremacy. In this environment, cyber defense and proactive intelligence are the new measures of security. Governments, corporations, and organizations are investing heavily in advanced detection systems, threat intelligence, and rapid response capabilities to counter the growing sophistication of hackers. At the same time, the reality is clear. No system can ever be entirely immune. Attackers constantly innovate, exploiting new technologies, developing new exploits, and finding weaknesses that defenders have yet to anticipate. In response, some nations and organizations have begun hiring hackers individuals who once operated on the margins of legality to strengthen their cyber capabilities. These experts provide insight into offensive techniques, help fortify systems, and simulate potential attacks, creating a defensive advantage built on understanding the mindset of attackers. Public awareness has also become critical. Citizens, employees, and network users play a crucial role in preventing attacks, as human error remains one of the most exploited vulnerabilities in digital systems. Education, best practices, and constant vigilance are no longer optional. They are essential components of national and organizational security. Looking forward, the shape of cyber wars will continue to change. Conflicts may never resemble conventional battles. They may involve strategic manipulation of critical infrastructure, disruption of communication networks, or large-scale data breaches that influence politics, economies, and public perception. Attribution will remain a challenge, and the line between civilian and military targets will continue to blur. Despite these challenges, the principle remains. Power in the digital age is concentrated where knowledge, access, and strategy intersect. Those who understand systems, anticipate vulnerabilities, and act with precision will shape the future of influence. The era of digital power is not defined by destruction alone, but by the ability to control information, systems, and outcomes in a rapidly changing world. In conclusion, the story of digital power from the earliest curious hackers to state-level cyber weapons, insider threats, and global crisis demonstrates that influence has shifted from size and force to knowledge and access. The future belongs to those who can navigate this invisible battlefield, protect critical systems, and anticipate the actions of adversaries who operate in shadows. The lesson is clear. In a world where information moves faster than control, mastery of cyber capabilities determines the trajectory of power itself. Those who underestimate this reality risk being left behind, vulnerable to forces they cannot see, predict, or fully prevent. This was the story of digital power and its global impact. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so more people can discover this story. Hit the notification bell to watch our latest videos first. Disclaimer: this video is for informational purposes only. The events and stories shared here are based on cybersecurity knowledge and publicly available information, and are not targeted against any country or individual.